Okay, it is the week of May 24th, 2022, and this week in new science fiction and fantasy books, we've got 2 new fantasy books to tell you about, 4 science fiction titles, and 4 horror titles. A lot of independent press this week, and a few self-published works, plus a not insignificant dose of horror mixed right into everything. We call Locus the magazine of the science fiction and fantasy field, but sometimes there's more fantasy to cover than there is science fiction, and sometimes more horror. Don't tell anyone I told you that. You like books? Okay, maybe you love books. We love books, and we're going to tell you all about the titles that are hitting shelves now. Let's get into it. In fantasy titles, and to get pedantic for just 1 second, our definition of a fantasy title includes standalone novellas, collections, which are books by just one author, and anthologies, which are books generally by a lot of authors, edited by 1 or 2 people, but mostly we see novels. First up is a fantasy mystery about a murderous baker. Murderous baker, which is already my favorite idea, because who suspects a baker of doing wrong? It's called Magic, Lies, and Deadly Pies. The author is Misha Pop, and the book is coming out from Crooked Lane in hardcover, ebook, and audio. The baker's name is Daisy Ellery, and apparently Daisy's magical pies can avenge women done wrong by men. Pies before guys, people. Pies before guys. Next, we'll mention a dark fantasy / weird western title coming out this week called Cold as Hell, from 2 best-selling authors, Rhett C. Bruno and Jamie Castle. This book is published by Blackstone Publishing in trade paperback, ebook, and audio. This is the first in the Black Badge series, where the protagonist is a not quite dead, not quite damned hunter of the supernatural. Gunslingers, shootouts, hellish beasts, shapeshifters, and more. This book includes a bonus prequel story as well. Pivoting next to science fiction, which we call SF for short, we want to lead with a new book by Dan Shawn called Sleepwalk. This darkly humorous near-future SF novel is coming out from Holt in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is a book about a big-hearted mercenary, and let's be real. Don't we all expect mercenaries who secretly be big softies on the inside? Anyway, this mercenary is on a road trip, and he gets a call from a biological daughter he didn't know he had, and she needs his help. Hijinks ensue. Next, we want to mention a book called Afterglow by writer Tim Jordan, being published by Angry Robot as an international edition, coming out in trade paperback, ebook, and audio. This is a near-future SF novel, the sequel to Glow, which was described by Publishers Weekly as 14 years after a nuclear apocalypse, South American Coriolis City is rife with murderous automatons, drug-crazed cyborgs, and the deadly machine drug Glow. Afterglow is the exactly perfect name for a sequel, and it's coming out this week. In the sequel, the eponymous nanotech drug from the first book, Glow, is now everywhere. It creeps across the world, a mind-bending plague, brain-altering poison that lives on from host to host, twisting everyone to its will. What could possibly go wrong? The next science fiction book we'll mention is a title called Reaper, spelled R-E-A-P 3 R, from the writer Elliot Pepper. This book is self-published in hardcover, trade paperback, ebook, and audio. It's a thriller about a group including a quantum computer scientist, a virologist, a podcaster, a venture capitalist, and an assassin working to untangle an enigma that could change the future. Pepper books have been praised by the New York Times Book Review, Popular Science, San Francisco Magazine, Business Week, IO9, Boing Boing, and Ars Technica, and the writer has been a speaker at places like Google, Comic-Con, and SXSW, which I have been told is pronounced South by Southwest. One book that sort of straddles science fiction and fantasy is Small Felonies Too by Bill Pronzini, coming out from Stark House in trade paperback, ebook, and audio. This is a collection of 50 short crime stories, one new, in a mix of genres including SF and fantasy. 14 of these stories are collaborations with the author Barry N. Malzberg, who also provides the afterword. A few horror titles we want to mention. We'll start with an intimate body horror novella called Helpmeet by author Neben Ruthnam. This book is coming out from Undertow in trade paperback, ebook, and audio. It's 1900, and Louise Wilk is trying to help her husband, who is wasting away from a strange malady that appears to be trying to transform and possess him. Premi Muhammad said, "An everyday tragedy spirals into a medical mystery and then into something much darker and more disquieting. I loved this intensely claustrophobic study of a complicated marriage twisting itself into something monstrous. This next one is more of a psychological suspense, but I'll shoehorn it in with horror anyways, because just like librarians, we gotta put leg with leg here somehow. Coming out from Putnam in hardcover, ebook, and audio is City of Orange by award-winning author David Yoon. This is a speculative, psychological suspense novel about a nameless man who wakes up in an apocalyptic landscape. He is injured and completely alone. He can barely remember anything, including his previous life and details about his family. Insert your own joke here about someone waking up with a bad case of the Mondays. His fight for survival quickly turns inward as memories begin to bubble up to the surface, revealing that not everything is as it seems. Another horror-adjacent title coming out this week that we want to tell you about is Hide by Kirsten White. This title is coming out in hardcover, ebook, and audio from publisher Del Rey. It's a dark, supernatural thriller. A high-stakes competition has people trying to spend a week in an abandoned amusement park, but players start disappearing. I might have had this nightmare. The fourth one we saw this week is called Primal Animals from writer Julia Lynn Rubin. It's being published by Wednesday Books in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is a young adult horror novel. The writer Emma Berquist, author of Missing, Presumed Dead, had this to say. Primal Animals is a wonderfully creepy mystery set under sunshine and fresh air where nothing is what it seems and no one is what you expect. Keep your eyes open, watch your back, and beware of the flies. Probably good advice. Flies never get to be the good guy. Briefly, I'll mention a few more titles we also saw this week. From publisher Black Spot Books, we saw a horror novel from authors Lindy Ryan and Christopher Brooks called Throw Me to the Wolves, coming out in trade paperback, ebook, and audio. This is a werewolf novel, first in the Cry Wolf series. From publisher Wordfire Press, we saw The Best of Mary Diana Dodds by the same author in hardcover, trade paperback, ebook, and audio. From Harlequin's Mirror imprint in hardcover, paperback, ebook, and audio, we saw Heather Graham's Sound of Darkness, a supernatural thriller/romance novel, 36th in the Crew of Hunters series. Finally, we saw the collection Everything Abridged from author Dennard Doyle, coming out in hardcover, ebook, and audio from the Overlook Press. This is a humorous sort of guide to the Anthropocene, a collection of 17 satirical stories. For a more complete listing of books with links, you can check out our new books post at locusmag.com. And in case you missed it, we also want to tell you about The Memory Librarian and Other Stories of Dirty Computer. This is a book from Janelle Monáe, who is super famous as a musician, so it's getting a lot of attention. This book is 5 short stories based on Janelle Monáe's album Dirty Computer, with writers including Elia Dawn Johnson and Cherie Renee Thomas collaborating on the stories. Locus reviewer Alex Brown had this to say: "We are introduced to the world of Dirty Computer through Johnson's The Memory Librarian. Sachette is the titular character, a woman who enforces the authoritarian goals of the new dawn by harvesting and erasing memories. Compliance, or being clean, is God here. Those who cannot or will not conform are deemed non-compliant or dirty computers and removed from the population. Some have escaped the city, while others have found ways large and small to resist. Despite her powerful position, Sachette is black and queer, so she must work twice as hard to prove her loyalty. When she develops feelings for a trans woman with a dirty computer past, Sachette's whole identity is thrown into chaos." That's from reviewer Alex Brown in the April 2022 issue of Locus. And another science fiction novel you maybe might have missed that came out recently that we want to mention is Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel. I loved Station 11 by the same author. Sea of Tranquility is a science fiction novel ranging between 1912 and British Columbia to the moon in 2401. Plus, there's a time traveler. Ian Mond, in his Locus review, says, Sea of Tranquility, a short novel that, amongst other things, is a sequel to The Glass Hotel, a metafictional commentary on Station 11, and a work that embraces the core tropes of genre fiction, imagining a far future of moon colonies, a climate-affected Earth, and time travel. Okay, don't forget, if you regularly commute to the deep woods of fairyland, for business reasons, or maybe because you got a sweetie living in a shack made of candy, maybe don't eat any bright red apples because nobody wants to end up like Snow White. It's a weird Me Too story, Snow White. Anyway, when you're in the deep woods of fairyland, do us a favor and write Locus Mag in breadcrumbs where the locals can see it. We gotta get the word out, and every bit helps. And if you'd like to know more about Locus Magazine, we cover SF, fantasy, horror, and YA books that are coming out. We do reviews, we interview authors, talk to artists, we report on writers' workshops and conventions, all kinds of stuff. And the magazine has been doing that and generally covering the publishing business since 1968. If you write science fiction, fantasy, horror literature, if you love to read this stuff and want to know how the sausage is made, we'll tell you. Go check us out at www.locusmag.com. You can subscribe to the print magazine. Locus is available in a digital edition, or you can donate to what we do via our Patreon or direct donation. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week with more new books.